Good morning and welcome to the Greenfield Public Schools School Committee Policy and Program Subcommittee. Let's see, we'll do a roll call. Member Denise?
Here.
Member Goodwin?
Here.
And I am here. So we have a quorum at 9:32 a.m. We're recording using the Google Meet platform to be put onto GCTV later. Is anyone else recording? Okay. And let's see, what does our agenda tell us that we are doing today? Public comment? All right, hearing none. So I'm on the wrong agenda. Let's see. Okay. Still on the wrong agenda. Bear with me. I have that agenda open. Where did it go? I go back to, while I'm looking, can someone tell me what's next on the agenda?
Yep, it is. Oh God, I just lost it just when you asked. It's approval of minutes from our April 4th meeting.
Yes. Can I have a motion to approve the draft minutes from the April 4th meeting?
So moved.
Is there a second? I'll second. Any discussion? Hearing none, let's vote. Member Deneve?
Yes.
Member Goodwin?
Abstain.
And I'm a yes. So the minutes are approved. All right. Agenda. Okay. Let's see. If there's no objection, let's plan to do the review of the duties and roles of the committee members and the committee's commitment to DEI work together, then the draft policy on tribal regalia, and then we can work on scheduling before adjournment. Is that okay with everybody?
That sounds great. I don't see the draft policy for tribal regalia though. Am I missing something in the materials?
No, we don't have one yet. This is kind of an initial discussion.
Got it. Awesome. Thank you.
Great. So I just emailed out to you this morning what's been presented at other times as well. The duties and roles. Our policy asks that each committee is presented with their duties and roles. So I've presented them, but would like people's feedback on what you think is strong about the description and what you think could be improved. Any discussion on that? I emailed it to you this morning as well.
Can we have a minute to read through? I read through it quickly, but I'd like to kind of be more analytical.
Sure. Yeah,
Thank you.
folks still want time.
I'm okay.
Okay, great. So thoughts about what you think is strong and what could be improved?
I think that the strongest part is that it allows us the ability to take stakeholder feedback into account, because that's something that comes up quite a bit, not just with us, but that's one of the number one questions I hear from other committee members in other districts, is that often when stakeholders communicate their needs, the response is it's not in your purview to work on those needs. And so I think under the umbrella of the policy, I guess just our subcommittee, or maybe under the full committee, we're able to have a little bit more latitude to consider the needs of the community, which I think is something that's really important. So I think that's a particularly strong point that I'm happy for.
I agree. And I love the word collaborate, because I feel like it's telling us to do that, which I think is strong.
And I like that you mentioned the legal requirements, because I think that people think sometimes that we get to just do whatever we want whenever we want, but they don't always understand that we're bound by legal requirements. And there are some things that might seem frustrating or not right, or something that maybe we're not aligned on, but our hands are tied because of the legal requirements. And so that is important that people understand that, I think. So that's good.
Nice.
And I like that you mentioned thorough reviews and policy revisions, because that gives us some latitude also to make the changes that we see need to be made to reflect the kind of culture we want in the district.
Right, because sometimes you create policies that have outcomes you didn't realize they were going to have. And so giving yourself the permission to reevaluate what was written and why it was written, and maybe the outcome was something you didn't foresee, and letting you go back to the table is a powerful tool.
And I like that you use the term emerging issues, because that also allows us to think in a more progressive way about the future and what's going to come at us at any given time.
Nice. Any recommendations for improvement?
I think it's great.
Okay.
It's good.
Excellent. Great. We can just convey that back to the school committee that we're okay with it. I guess the other piece was the next agenda item, with putting forward these duties and functions. Member Sexton, I think it was encouraging us to really look at DEI and our role in advancing DEI on this committee. I don't know if it's needs to necessarily be part of the duties and functions, or whether it could be a separate mission statement, or kind of another statement about DEI and how it relates to this committee. But maybe we could start with just people talking about how do you see DEI in relationship to our work on the policy and program subcommittee, given this description of our role.
When you said a couple of months ago that you wanted us to look through the lens of DEI whenever we did our subcommittee work, I was thinking how very smart that was, because it really sort of consolidated all of us, or put us all under one banner of thought. And so when we were working in the handbook subcommittee, one of the things we wanted to do was make sure that we had a DEI fueled mission statement, and we suddenly
Mhm.
realized that like we didn't have one. And
Mm,
so we went and we looked at the district mission statement, and we were like, well, this is great, but is this looking through a DEI lens? And then we were found ourselves sort of like scouring our policy handbook to find out if we had a mission statement. So I think your idea of having us everybody look through the lens of our work using the DEI concepts, maybe we should not just have a mission statement or like a separate statement for the policy program subcommittee, but it could be encouraged sort of across all of our subcommittees and our general committee work, so that we can have something that's similar but different across the board to address that within each of the groups. Does that make sense?
I think I'm hearing you say that you want the school committee to have kind of a DEI statement for the school committee as a whole. But then you're also saying we should, as a subcommittee, also be thinking about how DEI affects our work.
Yeah, sort of like if we had something at the top and then all of our subcommittees had some statement that flowed from that, so that
Yeah,
they are all sort of together as a group, so that we're all on the same page and we can reference that. That would not only be helpful for this committee, our whole committee, but like generally.
yeah. Well,
I love the idea.
one framework that occurs to me is kind of like you're saying, like statement implication. So if we, as a full committee, adopt a statement about DEI, then we can bring that to this subcommittee, talk about what are the implications for us. We're really gonna embody this statement. How does it affect us in our work on policy?
Right. And then each subcommittee could take that statement and go and say, well, how does DEI work for the budget and finance part of it? How does it work for, union negotiations or whatever we're working on? Thus
Yeah,
sort of keeping us all in the same loop.
nice. So with that, I could kind of see two options. We could essentially, you know, table this discussion. We could do an initial brainstorm of what it would look like to center DEI on policy and program now. That I don't think there'd be anything wrong with that. But I kind of like the idea of waiting to do any kind of anything final or any product until after the full committee adopts something. Um,
I think paper is one thing, but practice is another.
yeah.
And one of the things that we used to do years ago, um, we used to make a statement before each meeting that was about, you know, inclusion and diversity. So some school committees, I've never heard it, the statement in Greenfield, but some school committees, that's part of the opening statement, like a welcoming statement, which is, and I don't remember the actual, it was a legal phrase, which basically was respectful. So,
Mm,
and a lot of districts for years had that phrase on the bottom of their letterhead, which was, and I was quickly trying to Google to find it because I remember it was like for years and years, we were all either saying it before meetings and it was on every document that we had. And it really came out of that movement, um, when I taught in the South for 5 years, segregation, it came out of all of the civil rights violations that took place.
mm,
So, and we said it at every meeting. We put it on every document that went out. And I think that needs to happen again, especially with what's happening in the world. And, I think of each meeting as it starts and the statement that you make, it should be added to that statement because that's practice. That's practice. It's recorded. It's not just a piece of paper. A lot of things have been put on paper that never happen in the workplace or in life. Um, so I would say that saying it before each meeting, having it on every document, because somewhere I've read a lot of policy. There is some statement in our policy manual. I know there is. And I'll go back through it and try to find it. But lawyers have written that statement pretty clearly. And it's not a long statement, but it's just still a welcoming statement. It's how you say it, I think, at the beginning of a meeting. So I will go through all those things I've read and see what because I know there's something in our policy manual.
Nice. All right, well, let's include this on our next agenda, and we'll also be watching for what the handbook committee does in terms of a statement on DEI for the whole committee. So thank you. Great. And then the tribal regalia, is that framing that? Yeah. So I will summarize kind of the reason why this is on our agenda, and then Superintendent, if you can kind of fill us in on where we've gotten as far as like looking into our existing policies. But there was an issue in another state or place where the Native student was, or they tried to prohibit them from wearing tribal regalia to graduation. We got a message from someone basically saying, you know, Greenfield's a very welcoming place, and I've experienced it as very respectful, but wouldn't it be good to have a safeguard against a possible future, negative impact on a Native person wanting to wear regalia to graduation. So superintendent's office under Christine and now Karen have been kind of looking into our policies and where we are and what might work. So Karen, can you fill us in on that part?
Sure. We got some further clarification from the parent, and the tribal nation offers a cord and possibly a feather that is also part of the regalia. So we sent that information to our attorney. The policies that we have currently aren't quite in tune with this. So our attorney is going to draft a new policy that would cover not only this, but maybe other culturally relevant regalia, so that it's broad enough where we have a policy in place for this, but also specific enough where it doesn't turn into something that's inappropriate to wear at graduation. So our attorney is working on that. I have not seen the draft yet, but once I do, I will certainly share.
Any thoughts or questions?
I think that, wasn't this in Amherst that this happened?
Oh, I
think
thought it
It
was
was on the news.
yeah,
On the news.
I think that I think part of it has to start with the what do we require the graduates to wear? Like if you start by saying when you graduate, you have to wear this cap and gown. This is the uniform of the graduation. Everybody has to do it. Then you've created what the uniform is, and everyone will abide by that. But then you have to create some sort of position, I think, where you allow regalia. That's, I mean, people are going to say, well, if they get to add tribal regalia to their gowns, why can't I add my own regalia, be it a flag of my country or a specific symbol of, where I come from or whatever it is. It's kind of a slippery slope. So I feel like, I mean, I'm all for full on tribal regalia at all times, but if you're talking about how to regulate it, you're going to have to start with the base uniform, and then I think go on what you're allowed to add to that, because all kinds of people are going to want to add specific things. In Hawaii, everybody adds their own specific type of lei that is part of their own personal family tradition. and it's allowed on top of the gown. And then there are people who are going to want to decorate their caps, and there are people who are going to want to wear certain, jewelry. So I think if we make some sort of statement that says that you can do specific things and no more, that might be a way to feel inclusive of everyone. I just see this as going on a real slippery slope because people are going to
So my generation was in high school, and I went to high school in New Hampshire, where live free or die. We were the wear nothing under your gown generation. We were the streaking generation. And so it's interesting, like, it's always that push pull with seniors. It's a push pull thing. But I know that there was some principal, because I remember from, I think it was a Ginny Tate training, where they had somebody say that in their religion they bring swords to celebrations, and that became a problem. So I think that's why you involve a lawyer. I mean, there's your culture, but then there's also things that maybe you don't, that are not quite safe to bring a ceremony with lots of people. Because I remember this, that somebody wanted to bring a ceremonial sword to their graduation. 21 years of listening to Ginny Tate. I was like, whoa. Yeah.
Yeah. So it almost has to be like, well, like what the moment of graduation is not only a moment just to celebrate your achievements and that you're taking this new step in life, but you might want to bring along your own cultural representation with that. And so it has to be done in a safe space. And we're going to have to allow all of the diversity that goes along with that. And that's going to be things that we might not like or feel necessarily comfortable with, but we have to place some sort of limits. So I wonder what the lawyer feels about that. Like, all symbols are appropriate unless they're symbols of hate, or all tribal symbols or all cultural symbols are appropriate unless they're symbols of hate. I don't know how the lawyer would feel about that. It's kind of sticky, but it can't just be tribal regalia, I think, or we're going to get pushback from other groups.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see what the attorney puts forward for us. And I don't know if other groups are working on this or if there's any mask language that could be used or whatever, but it'll be interesting to see when we have a proposal to consider. So
every generation is different.
yeah, tricky stuff. Okay, well, we will convene when there's a policy to consider. And so now about scheduling, we had been meeting on the I think the first Thursday of the month, and then that's kind of stopped working for me, although it at least temporarily is working for me again. But we're not in a period of necessarily needing to meet every month unless there's something to meet about. But I do kind of like to have something penciled in, as policy stuff does come up often enough, and I hate having to go back to the drawing board for scheduling stuff. So what do people think? Is that okay if we pencil in a monthly time? And then we can check in a week before and just release people's time if it doesn't seem there's any policies we need to consider.
As long as I have a few days of notice, it's usually fine. And as long as it's after 8:30 in the morning, it's usually fine.
Okay. Great. So let's see. What if we maybe went back to first Thursday?
Once school starts, my conflict, I'll be subbing. So anything after 3 is good for me.
Okay.
I could do anything after 5 p.m. and anything before noon.
Oh, okay.
I'm free from 8:30 in the morning to have to be out the door at 1:30 p.m. So during the week. So that makes things kind of hard. And I'm not home until 5.
Yeah,
After 5 is
Definitely.
fine. 5?
5 p.m. works for you, Mel?
Yep, it does.
What about you, Karen? 5 p.m. workable? Okay. I think it works for me. In general, it doesn't work great for me on the 1st. Well, I don't really know. I'm looking at August. I kind of, we won't, I don't think we'll have, unless something emergency comes up, I don't think we will have a meeting August 1st.
Skip
Mhm.
August.
Yeah,
Go for September.
totally. All
I
right.
mean, back to school stuff is out. I can't even handle it. So,
Yeah.
September 5th is the parade, so we cannot, we'll be marching.
I'm sorry, Karen. For something's wrong with your volume for me. I don't know if it's a problem for others, but
she's going to be in a parade, so she can't be there.
in August or September?
September 5th is the Franklin County Parade,
Oh, okay.
so couldn't do
Great.
5 that day.
Rock and
Alrighty.
roll.
Could folks do 5 on August 29th if needed?
Yeah.
All
I think
right.
so. Oh, Karen, you need a convertible to ride in for the parade.
So that happens to be the 5th Thursday, and I don't think that'll work most months. But so let's look at October, October 3rd, 5 p.m.
Sure.
All right, and then we'll look at first Thursday, 5 p.m. going forward.
Bless you.
Okay, great. Mhm. Thanks, folks. I take a motion to adjourn.
I actually have one question
Yeah,
about something about a potential new business item in the future.
yeah.
Could we talk or at least look at policy and talk about the policy for AI imagery? There's been some problems, and I brought it up to you that there's districts all around the country that are contending with certain apps that students are using to make AI images of students in the nude and then texting them around. And it's going through the high schools, and there's all kinds of lawsuits. And one of the news stories that I was reading was talking about districts making preemptive policy changes in order to combat that. And I was just wondering if our digital use policy covers any of that. I know that we have cell phones put away, but that doesn't necessarily stop them. And what happens if they do that, and what sort of consequences are there, and so on and so forth. I was just wondering if we could revisit it, because this is something on the rise that maybe we should get in front of before it gets dumped on us.
I know the policy covers inappropriate images. Because I read it every year as I gave it out to everybody.
Right.
But consequence wise, I mean, kids would lose access to Chromebooks. But after the pandemic, the Chromebook became more of the educational tool. Like, it wasn't something you could. So I don't know. But AI, definitely. I've been listening to the kids. They get a 30-day free app, and they go wild.
Yep.
Yeah.
So I was just wondering if we could maybe do a little research and then talk about it and just make sure that we're covered appropriately in this new age.
Yeah, Karen, okay if you and I chat about that on Friday and chart a course forward, and either we'll have it on a policy agenda or a full school committee agenda at some point. Oh, I can't hear you at all now, Karen. Oh, boy.
You all not hear me?
We can hear
Well,
you now.
I can hear you now, but for me, it's very faint. I don't know why.
Quiet,
I'm
quiet.
on my laptop. I can also reach out to our attorney and see what other districts have been doing with this as
Yeah.
well, and get some information for us.
Great.
Thank
Thank you so much. Yeah. All right. I think I said at the start of the school committee year, and I think it's true for this policy committee as well, that if folks want something on an agenda, it's, please just give me a call, and, if I agree, I'll add it to the agenda. If it's something where I feel like the committee needs to weigh in about whether or not we take something up, then we can put it on as a new business and vote on whether to take it up as a committee. So process note. So I'd hear a motion to adjourn.
I'm so moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
I guess I need to do by roll call because we're on virtual
Okay.
video conference. Member Deneve,
Yes.
Member Goodwin,
Yes.
and I'm a yes. We are adjourned at 10:03 a.m. Thanks,
Have a great
everybody.
day.
Thank you. Enjoy your day.
You too.
Bye.